Well, good morning. Thank you for joining our 21 Next YouTube broadcast this morning. I'm Kennedy Miller, also joined here by CBS 21's Candace Scalese. We also have Yasmine Cowan here as well. They are actually in New York. They've been there all morning as the community continues to mourn the loss of a police officer after he was shot and killed in a mass shooting at the UPMC Memorial Hospital in New York over the weekend. Now, this all went down on Saturday, and it's just a really tragic and heartbreaking story. We know Andrew Duarte, the officer who was shot and killed. He was really young. He was only 30 years old. He had served as a police officer for several years, and he actually had just celebrated his birthday a few days before the shooting. So just a really heartbreaking story. We have a lot to unbundle this morning. So I'm going to actually send things over to CBS 21's Candace Scalese because she was actually on scene Saturday. She covered this tragic event, and we have some questions to ask her this morning. So first, what do we know about the shooter, Candace?
Hey, Kennedy, good morning. So we still know very limited information right now. The shooter is 49 years old, and we know that he had a relative in the ICU, and there's a UPMC assistant physician who posted on Facebook yesterday that he had interacted with the shooter, and we're told that prior to the shooting that happened on Saturday, that the shooter had a loved one in the ICU who passed away. And the UPMC staff member who works in the ICU was saying on Facebook that he was clearly heartbroken about his loved one passing, and he didn't anticipate anything like this happening. And so we do know the shooter is 49 years old. We know that he has a criminal past. On February 13th, he was stopped for driving with a suspended license, and he has some other crimes dating back to 2016. Let me see what his first name is because I want to make sure I pronounce it correctly. But I know his last name is Archangel-Ortiz. Let me just, Diogenes Archangel-Ortiz. So he was 49 years old. So we don't know an exact motive right now. We can only assume that it had something to do with a loved one passing away in the ICU prior to him going into the hospital, as authorities say, with a gun and zip ties holding the ICU patients hostage until police ended up in a shootout with him, and he ultimately ended up shooting and killing the Officer Andrew Duarte with the West York Borough Police Department. 2 other officers were hurt, and then 3 staff members with UPMC, a doctor, nurse, and a custodian. Everyone who was shot that survived is expected to be okay. They're still recovering in the hospital. One of the officers has been released so far. So that's the latest that we know right now as far as the suspect and who he is, Kennedy.
And Candace, we know these hostages, they were held by zip ties. Do we know how many hostages were held on Saturday?
I asked that during the press conference, and it sounded like it was too early in the investigation to tell. The district attorney was saying that there was at least one hostage whose hands who was zip tied and who's had a gun to their head, and that's when police approached the shooter when all of that was happening. It sounds like there were multiple people being held hostage, but we don't know exactly how many. We just know this happened on the ICU floor in front of patients in the UPMC Memorial Hospital Saturday morning, sometime between 10:30 and 11:15. And you can see on our screen right now this memorial that's set up and us just speaking with people in the community, Kennedy.
Yeah, Candace, and do we know how many agencies responded on Saturday?
There were multiple. So from what I understand, according to the press conference that happened on Saturday, we learned that there were there were security guards at UPMC who first responded to the scene, responded to the situation, and then multiple agencies, including Spring-Itsbury Township, we know West York Borough Police, and several others, not only local, but state agencies as well. And you can see from the video on your screen right here, those are all unmarked or marked police officers, and they had a police patrol unit there as well. So it was an all hands on deck situation where officers from every different county, municipality, and township and federal and local responded to that scene for what ended up being a hostage situation that ended in a mass shooting.
And we also know that several officials have also responded to this tragic shooting. What did the governor have to say about the shooting?
Yeah, so the governor spoke after the district attorney of Dorte County, and the governor basically started off by saying that the shooter's a coward for walking into the hospital with a bag carrying a firearm and zip ties. And then he goes on to say, you know, as a hospital worker, you go in to help people, you go in to heal wounds. And so when you put on your white coat that day, when you put on your nurse outfit, you're going to work to help. And that something like this should never happen in a place like a hospital. And so he's just calling for everybody to come together and to support one another at this time and in a time of tragedy.
And Candace, as far as hospital, is it closed? Is it open to the community? What does that look like?
So directly after the shooting, or I'm assuming sometime during the shooting, we know that the hospital did shut down its entrance, and it shut down any ambulances or any emergency vehicles pulling up to the emergency area. And it also stopped any visitors from coming. So right now, the UPMC put out a statement saying that no visitors are allowed, and that's just as they recruit and go through all this investigation. And they're just giving, I think, everybody time to heal. And so it is still closed to visitors, and you can walk into the emergency room, but any emergency vehicles are being diverted to other hospitals at this time.
And Candace, I know that you're also speaking to Andrew Duarte's mother. So where can people access that interview? Where can they view that at?
Yeah, so I talked to her briefly on the phone earlier this morning, and I will tell you, I was very surprised. Her name is Nancy. I was very surprised initially how great she sounded, and then we started talking about her son. We started talking about Andrew, and that's when she started tearing up, telling me that, you know, she has a photo of pinning his police badge on him when he graduated, and that's when the tears started coming. And I just let her know, you know, so many people are just wrapping their arms around her from afar and thinking about her. And I also told her, you know, I don't know that the pain ever goes away from what I've heard just speaking with other people who've experienced tragedies, but that you just kind of learn to live with the pain. So I'm looking forward to talking to her. She actually has police officers visiting her home right now, just checking on her, making sure she's doing okay. And then we're going to sit down with her at noon, and you can watch that live on our noon broadcast and just kind of hear more about her son and honestly how she's doing and coping with this. I think it's every parent's nightmare to bury their child. And so she has been very open, from what I understand, about sharing the love of her son. And I actually had the opportunity to speak with a police officer earlier this morning outside of a memorial that's set up at the West York Borough Police Department, where Officer Andrew Duarte worked. And he was just telling me, I said, you know, how would you describe Andrew? And he said, oh my gosh, he was very eccentric. He was hilarious. Apparently he had this great dry sense of humor, and he was just a joy to be around. Very honorable man and a hard worker. And we know he was at the department for 2.5 years after working in Denver. He had almost 8 years as a career police officer. So we're looking forward to learning more about him and this beautiful life that he lived as his family prepares to say their final goodbye to him today, Kennedy. So that's going to be live at noon, and then we'll share it tonight in our broadcast on 5 and 6, and then also on YouTube and on Facebook, social media. Everyone will be able to find it there and kind of see a glimpse into how she's doing and just who he was.
All right, well, definitely looking forward to seeing that interview, Candace. Thank you. I also want to bring back in CBS 21's Yasmine Cowan, because she's also in New York this morning as well. Now, the community, they came together in a procession to actually say goodbye to Andrew Duarte. So tell us a little bit about that, Yasmine.
Yasmine, actually, her phone died. Sorry, this is Alexa, the producer, on the other end.
All right. Well,
we're
no
waiting
problem.
for her to rejoin. Not sure if she will make it here, but yes, her phone did die.
All right. Well, thank you for that update. We do know that she interviewed someone at the memorial in front of the police department who was actually leaving flowers for Andrew Duarte. So hopefully we'll have more on that today at noon. You can also access it online as well and on our Facebook pages. You know, we will continue to follow this breaking news as more information does become available. You can watch updates, CBS 21 Next. We also know that a fundraiser is being set up Tuesday at the Moonlight Cafe in Dover, where a portion of the proceeds will be going to the Duarte family. There's also going to be fundraisers. There's GoFundMes that are set up that are happening today as well. You can access that on CBS 21 News Facebook page or on our website. And we look forward to keeping you updated as, like we said, new information becomes available. And thank you for joining us.